Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Played Table Talk Back. My name is Rodney Smith, and you guys had many responses to the question, why is our board gaming community so friendly? And secondly, do you think that being marginalized as gamers has contributed to that friendliness? Well, let's dive right in by taking a look at a sample of some of these responses. Dare Machina said, I think the reason gamers are friendly and inclusive is twofold. First, it's hard to trash talk when the other person is close enough to actually strike you. That's a good point. Secondly, online games are generally short bursts with rotating strangers, while board games have you sitting with the same people for hours getting to know each other. This was certainly the opinion shared by many people when describing why our community tends to be more friendly with one another. And I have to admit, I think I too have found the anonymity of the internet has given me the courage to sometimes say things I wouldn't normally say if I was face to face with somebody. That said, I think it is important to give our community a little bit of credit. We have places like Board Game Geek where people can hide behind an avatar, and yet still, although there are flame wars there as well, I think by and large what you will find is if you have a question, you're curious about the hobby, you'll find many more people who are willing to help you out and encourage you in the hobby than those that would discourage you, even though those people exist there as well. Count Blanc says, I think a lot of it comes from being adults. Board games have an older target demographic than many hobbies. I imagine that's true. I don't know the stats on that, but he's probably right. It's easy to forget that many of the people generating negative experiences online, be it on message boards, YouTube comments, or in a game, are in fact literal children. I just like this comment because it's really how I keep myself positive online. If I see someone being negative, oftentimes we'll think of them as being our peers. But for all we know, this is a 10-year-old kid who just finished getting picked on by their sister and has come online to sort of unleash their pent-up anger and frustration. So when I see someone getting angry, even saying something critical of me, I try to think of them as maybe being that person, and then I feel a little less personally insulted and a little more understanding and less likely to engage and respond in kind. Davy Jones says, the hobby's friendliness is an illusion. Anytime many people get together to share in a common interest, they always seem like better people somehow. If you were to meet these same people in the street, you would hate them in the exact same ratio as the rest of humanity. But because you have this thing in common, you have something to share and you have a sense of familiarity. Davey, I think you're probably right there, to be honest, and I feel kind of sad admitting this, but the reality is we probably are predisposed to people who share things that we share and like the things that we like, and we probably tend to stay away from or encounter greater resistance when it's somebody who doesn't share what we like. And this has really caused a lot of problems for humanity, don't you think? A lot of wars, a lot of segregation, because when people appear to be different, we don't always welcome them the way that we should. I think also in our hobby, because we are a smaller niche compared to, say, the people who like football, it makes us all the more grateful when we find someone who appreciates what we appreciate and perhaps makes us more inviting. But that said, as you're going to hear from a few people, it's not always this way. Vaughn Cockle says, I think the community as a whole has little tolerance for bullying, though I have become aware of segregation and bullying of those who don't fit to our norm. One example is female gamers, and a belief that a female gamer is not a proper gamer, but pretending. Ulf Bengtsson says, the facade this hobby puts up is that we are this open place, where everyone is accepted for who they are and everyone is welcome in. But I see a lot of sneering and jibing at cons, at those who are not really fitting in. Nika says, I've been bullied more in the geek culture than outside of it. Being female and eschewing the acceptable geek girl costume of nerdy t-shirts, I'm regularly asked to defend my geek credentials. Being face-to-face isn't necessarily a shield either. The bullying just becomes more subtle. The female gamer endures sexist jokes and gendered slurs not directed at her. Consciously or unconsciously, a lot of groups self-regulate this way. The odd ones just stop showing up one day or suffer in silence because of what they gain, some game time. Also, the field seems predominantly white. I haven't been to any of the big cons yet, but in reports you don't see many people of color. Nika, I can't really argue with that. When I was at Gen Con, it was predominantly a sea of white skin. There wasn't a ton of variety in terms of skin color there. And I also, unfortunately, think you're correct in terms of how gamer geek girls are being treated. Not by everyone, of course, but there certainly is a segment of our gaming culture which is not welcoming gamer geek girls. And I think that does tie back to the bullying that I brought up earlier. I think it comes from a place of insecurity. I think if, let's say you're a gamer guy and you were bullied and you finally found a community to fit into, like the gaming community, and you see a cute girl, you might say to yourself, listen, I earned my place here. This is the one place I could fit in. You could fit in anywhere. You haven't earned your place in our community. And that's just obnoxious, short-sighted, ignorant, and I really think we should discourage that kind of attitude where we see it. We shouldn't judge people based on their skin color, based on their gender, and then make assessments of whether or not they've earned their place in our community. I have a daughter myself, and I would like to think that her acceptance into any community is based more on the merits of what she contributes to it than her gender. Especially since my daughter's gender is something she had no control over. Board Game Nerd says, it's very nice to romanticize our subculture, but the truth is that gamers are like other groups. A few great people, a few awful ones, and a whole lot of regular folks. I do suspect that you're right on that, but I still hold to the notion that if you are a smaller community compared to others, if you're part of a community of shared interests, that you can basically throw a rock and hit somebody who also shares the interests that you do, then you're not going to have the same level of appreciation and maybe even inclusiveness that a group that's smaller and is sort of desperately trying to find other people who share the same interests. But I agree with you. We do have to be careful about how much we glorify our own subculture, and otherwise we may not self-regulate the problems that exist within our own community, as people have been identifying. David Flegel says, I was seriously bullied as a kid, and I do think it makes me more aware of those behaviors. I know that for me, gaming as a child was a way to escape my life for a little while. In real life, kids could pick on me. In the gaming world, especially in games like Dungeons & Dragons, I could be a hero. As an adult, I think gaming is still sort of an escape. You can kind of be a kid again. I relate to this because, as I mentioned, I was bullied, particularly on my street, growing up. And so I would spend many hours in my room alone, writing, creating fantasy worlds that I could craft the heroics that I was in. I could control the environment around me and make it maybe more positive than what I was facing in reality. I mean, that said, we have to be very careful about these outlets because these fantasy worlds are not reality, and you have to learn how to deal with the reality that faces you. So there's a balance that's important, but I think it can be good to have these places of fancy to retreat to escape for a while and get that reprieve that you need to maybe build up your courage and strength to go out there and face it again. Crankbait4444 says, there are very few people in the world who at some point have not felt bullied or ridiculed. This was another comment I saw repeated on a few different occasions, and I'm not picking on what Crankbait is saying here. I understand what you're getting at. I think that most people have at some point or another been criticized or bullied or ridiculed. I mean, even if you're in the popular crowd, I'm sure there's people within the popular crowd that will pick on you for not having the most expensive clothes or whatever the thing is at the time. I think we have to be careful about making everything seem equal, because I don't think that's true. I mentioned to you guys that I was bullied on my street growing up, but there was another kid on my street who was bullied way worse than I was. I mean, when he would drive by on his bike, kids would literally pick up rocks and throw them at him. Most of the time for me it was just names and mean-spiritedness, but this was a kid who I'm sure was afraid to even leave his house just to bike up and down the street, and I didn't have that fear. So I think it's important to understand that not everyone has been bullied or ridiculed in the same way. And as I say, Crankbait, I'm not suggesting that was what you were implying, but when you said that, it made me think about the importance of mentioning that. I think it's important for us to realize that we all have had different experiences, and some more extreme than others. JWard1465 says, things are so much better now for the hobby. I am old enough, I was playing Dungeons & Dragons in the 70s, that I remember when you never admitted playing role-playing games. Ever. We would make up all kinds of lies about what we were doing instead. I went to Gen Con in 1980 when there was about 500 people there. Can you believe it? 500 people, and now there's 50,000. Crazy. It was the first time I ever saw people openly playing games and being proud of it. It blew my mind. I wanted to end on that positive note because I think it is a wonderful time to be a gamer, and that's something that I think we hopefully can enjoy in some respect or another, even if we're not directly plugged in to that gaming community. Before I started Watch It Played, I just took some reassurance in knowing that there were lots of other gamers out there like me, even if they weren't in my local area, and I think that is kind of an exciting thing, and I think that will continue to be the way as we move forward, and I hope that at our core, even as we grow and hopefully become more prevalent, we will still remember what it was like to not have thousands and thousands of other gamers around us and how important it was that we valued each other. And I want to say to you guys, I really value that you took the time to write in about this topic and share your thoughts with me. And also people sent in video responses. So I'm going to wrap up right here and I'll leave you with just a sampling of different clips from those video responses. As always, until the next episode, thanks for watching.
In our hobby, we sit at a table, and I think that there's some kind of subliminal message in our heads that when you sit at that table, you put on your best etiquette. You know, it's your table manners. You sit down to eat your dinner, you act in a certain way to what you do when you're somewhere else, playing football in a field. So playing football in the field, you have a certain demeanour, whereas at the table you have another demeanour. So I think playing games at a table kind of turns you into a different person.
I think that it's true that board game community, it's a good community, but I think it's so also because it's a social activity. So we are all one in front of us, and it's harder to become really jerk or acting like a jerk, acting like bullying people and so on, because we are in person. If you are 14 and you are a great player of Smite, you maybe could try to insult me because I am 29, but I am a noob. But when we are in person, I am 29 and you are 14, so you probably shut up. Also, if I don't do anything to intimidate you, just my presence can intimidate you. So I think it's true that is 98% jerk free, but I think it's true also because the kind of game we play.
Well, just last week, I met a person who looked at a bunch of people playing a lighter game and said, I would not play with them because I've transcended. He literally used the word transcended their level of board games. It was just mean-spirited, and he was saying it on the table with two people who actually loved King of Tokyo. So, but the board game community is growing, and that's a fantastic thing, and God heavens knows that I'm just happy that most of us are nice and normal, basically. It's all you can ask, really. Nice, normal people. So, thank you very much.
Board gaming is a pretty small niche. I'm pretty new to it, and I really agree that because it is small, when you run into somebody who enjoys playing a board game like you do, there's an excitement that kind of fills you up, like, oh my gosh, this person's gonna enjoy playing this or that, and maybe they can show me some new things. And I think that really does play a lot into the friendliness that you encounter in the board gaming circles.
And to start with your second question, yes, I was bullied in school, and to get some refuge from that, me and my friends role played. We found different role-playing systems and created our fantasy worlds where we could be the heroes. And that's right, we brought the meat to the table and fed the families No, actually, we just killed the monsters and took the treasure and ran home. But it was fun, and that was a relief in that otherwise harsh world.
In this community that we're in now, I never felt a more welcoming community. It's hard to find, but once you know where to look, it's so welcoming and so easy that people are socially awkward, but as soon as you break that ice with a simple hello, oh, do you like this game? People are very nice, very informative. I feel that this is attributed to the medium that we choose as adults, that we chose to play games, chose to play tabletop, and a social setting that is why we are the way we are. I'm sure that there are people who are going to say that they have derived this type of behavior because they were tormented. They don't want other people to feel that way, but I assure you that even somebody who wasn't tormented, I don't want anybody to feel that way. Why would I want to bring anybody down? The people that I play with, I want them to enjoy the games that I play. I want them to want to play with me again. I want to be able to play with them over and over. And I don't want to exclude anybody. So that's just my opinion. I hope that it was a little bit informative. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it. And tell Luke I said hello. Keep rolling them crits. Take care, buddy.
Even now, I'm not bullied necessarily, but being misunderstood might still be pretty prevalent. Even when I was telling, family, friends, and coworkers that I was going to Gen Con and that it was the largest gaming convention in the United States, and I guess now by recent numbers, actually larger than Essen, their response was, "Oh, like chess?" To which I responded, "Yes, like chess, only more modern games." And I think that was the easiest way to explain it at the time, because they're not really gamers, especially when you talk to your grandparents. And then the other response was, if it wasn't, "Are you going to play games like chess?" or "What are you dressing up as?"